Your biggest embarrassment is worth millions. You just don't know how to cash it in yet. Right now, you're carrying around the most valuable thing you own, and you think it's garbage. That moment when you got destroyed in front of everyone, when your name became a joke, when you wanted to disappear forever. You think that moment ruined you. But what if it's actually the key to everything you want? I'm dead serious. While you've been hiding from your humiliation, other people have been turning theirs into empires, into unstoppable reputations, into the kind of power that makes them untouchable. You want proof? Every billionaire, every world leader, every person you secretly wish you could be, they all have one thing in common. They got publicly annihilated, and instead of staying down, they did something most people think is impossible. They turned their worst day into their greatest weapon. Jeff Bezos got laughed at for selling books online. Oprah got fired on live television. Trump became a punchline for decades before becoming president. The list goes on and on. But here's what's really wild. None of them succeeded despite their humiliation. They succeeded because of it. And there's a reason why. Something Machiavelli discovered 500 years ago that still makes people uncomfortable today. He figured out that the moment you get publicly destroyed is the exact moment you become dangerous. Not weaker, dangerous. Because once you've survived everyone watching you fall apart, you realize something that changes everything. Their opinion of you was never real power anyway. Think about it. What's the worst thing someone can do to you once you've already been the laughingstock? Mock you? Been there. Humiliate you? Already happened. Try to destroy your reputation? Too late. You become bulletproof. But here's the catch. This only works if you know the strategy. Most people react to humiliation the wrong way, and it destroys them forever. They hide, they apologize, they try to make everyone forget. Fatal mistake. The people who win do the opposite. They lean into it. They own it. They turn it into a story that makes them impossible to ignore. So let me ask you something. That moment you're most ashamed of, the one that still makes your stomach drop when you think about it, are you ready to find out what it's really worth? Because I'm about to show you how to turn your greatest humiliation into your most powerful asset. And once you see it, you'll never think about embarrassment the same way again. Let's start with what actually happens when you get humiliated. Not the fantasy version where you handle it perfectly, but the real version. The one where you're human. Something goes wrong. Maybe you're giving a presentation and completely blank out. Maybe someone calls you out on social media and it starts spreading. Maybe you fail at something important and everyone's watching. And in that moment, your brain doesn't think strategically. It doesn't calculate. It panics. First comes the rush. Your face gets hot. Your heart pounds. You feel everyone's eyes on you like laser beams. Then comes the voice in your head. Fix this. Now. Make it stop. Do something. So you do what everyone does. You try to control the narrative. You explain why it wasn't really your fault. You apologize profusely. You try to change the subject. Or you go the other direction. You get angry. You lash out. You blame everyone else. But here's what's really happening. With every word you say, every defensive move you make, you're making it worse. Because people can smell desperation. They can see panic. And the more you try to control how they see you, the more powerless you look. The humiliation burns for days, weeks, months. You replay it endlessly. You lose sleep thinking about what you should have said, what you should have done differently. You avoid certain people, certain places, certain situations because you're terrified it might happen again. And somewhere in that spiral of shame and avoidance, your power vanishes. But the wound doesn't heal. It just sits there, making you smaller, more careful, more afraid. Machiavelli saw this pattern everywhere. He watched person after person get struck down by public humiliation, and he noticed something crucial. Every person had a choice in that moment, to remain fallen or to rise strategically. And almost everyone chose wrong. They chose emotional reaction over calculated response. They chose defending over strategizing. They chose trying to make people forget instead of making people remember for the right reasons. Here's the painful truth most people never face. Your response to humiliation isn't strength, it's weakness disguised as pride. When you rush to defend yourself, when you hide from the spotlight, when you get emotional about what people think, you're not protecting your power. You're advertising that you never had any to begin with. Real power doesn't need to be defended. Real power doesn't hide from attention. Real power doesn't get emotional about other people's opinions. But the price of getting this wrong is steep. Because every time you react emotionally to public shame, every time you let humiliation control your next move, you create a deeper vulnerability to the next attack. Your enemies learn exactly which buttons to push. They see exactly how to break you, and they will use that information. Think about it. If someone wanted to destroy you right now, what would they do? They'd bring up your most embarrassing moment, wouldn't they? They find the thing you're still sensitive about and make it public again, because they know it still has power over you. And that's the trap. As long as your humiliation controls you, you'll never control anything else. As long as you're still trying to live down your past, you'll never build up your future. As long as you're still defensive about your failures, you'll never be dangerous enough to win. But here's what Machiavelli discovered that changes everything. The people who become truly powerful don't avoid this trap. They flip it. They take the very thing that should destroy them and turn it into the foundation of their strength. And once you understand how, you'll never be vulnerable to humiliation again, because you'll have learned the most ruthless lesson in the book. The person who has nothing left to lose is the most dangerous person in the room. Let me take you deeper. You're 6 years old, standing in front of the class. The teacher asks you a question and you get it wrong. Everyone laughs. You feel your face turn red, your chest tighten, and in that moment, you learn something that will control you for decades. Being exposed equals being destroyed. But when you hide, when you shrink, when you never raise your hand again, people approve. The teacher moves on. Your parents say, "It's okay, honey." And that reaction sticks. You learn that avoiding humiliation keeps you safe. So you repeat it for years, until adulthood, where your fear of exposure becomes automatic. You don't speak up in meetings. You don't take risks. You don't put yourself out there, because somewhere deep down, that 6-year-old is still terrified of everyone laughing. But here's what most people never realize. Humiliation has memory. Every time you react emotionally to public shame, every time you let embarrassment control your next move, you wire your brain to fear exposure. Exposure becomes unbearable, which is why you can't handle criticism, why you need constant validation, why being wrong feels like death. You've trained yourself to see any kind of public failure as a threat to your survival. And Machiavelli knew this. He saw how emotional responses to humiliation become weapons for your enemies. Not because humiliation is evil, but because we've been conditioned to misuse our response to it. Think about the most powerful people you know, the ones who seem untouchable. They all share one trait. They're not afraid of being wrong in public. They're not terrified of criticism. They don't need everyone to like them, because at some point they broke the conditioning. They stopped seeing exposure as destruction and started seeing it as opportunity. But most of us never get there. We stay trapped in that childhood pattern, spending our entire lives trying to avoid the very thing that could set us free. Here's the real enemy. Not the humiliation itself, but the fear of it. Because that fear makes you predictable. It makes you controllable. It makes you weak. When your enemies know you're terrified of public embarrassment, they own you. They can threaten to expose you, criticize you, embarrass you, and you'll do whatever they want to avoid it. You become their prisoner, and the prison bars are made of other people's opinions. Now, before we go further, I want you to do something. If this is hitting home, if you recognize this pattern in yourself, subscribe. Not just because it helps this message reach people who need it, but because you're not alone in this. And comment below, what moment of public humiliation still haunts you? Because admitting it exists is the first step to turning it into power. The question isn't whether you've been conditioned to fear exposure. You have. We all have. The question is, are you ready to break that conditioning and start using humiliation the way Machiavelli intended? Now here's the trap. Imagine a person in battle, dodging every arrow. Each time they duck, they expose themselves to the next shot. That's what emotional responses to humiliation are. Constant dodging that makes you an easier target. Most people spend their entire lives playing defense. Someone criticizes them, they defend. Someone embarrasses them, they hide. Someone attacks them, they attack back. But defense is not strategy. It's just reaction. And here's the irony. Real power, the kind that builds empires, is often forged in public failure. It doesn't demand vindication. It doesn't require hiding. It doesn't need revenge. It transforms the attack into advantage. Machiavelli once wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, but it is better still to turn your enemy's weapons into your own." Let me give you an example. There was a leader who got publicly destroyed for a failed venture. The press annihilated them. Competitors celebrated. But instead of hiding or fighting back emotionally, they used the attention. They leveraged the story. They turned the mockery into proof of their willingness to take risks others wouldn't dare. That failure became their origin story. That humiliation became their brand. And everyone who mocked them, they became free marketing. This story isn't rare among the truly powerful. People who confuse emotional reaction with strength, defense with strategy, hiding with wisdom, they stay powerless. But those who see humiliation as raw material, they become unstoppable. Because here's what nobody tells you. Your enemies aren't trying to destroy you with humiliation. They're trying to make you destroy yourself with your reaction to it. Every time you defend desperately, every time you hide shamefully, every time you lash out angrily, they're doing their work for them. You're proving that their attack worked. You're showing everyone exactly how to hurt you next time. The trap isn't the humiliation. The trap is thinking you need to escape it instead of weaponizing it. Here's the myth we need to destroy. Humiliation is not defeat. Humiliation is not weakness. Humiliation is not the end. Humiliation is raw material for power. Let's flip this around. Think of the last time you stayed calm during public criticism. When you didn't rush to defend yourself, didn't hide, didn't lash out. Remember how that felt afterward? Powerful, right? Because strategic response isn't just control, it's political intelligence. And intelligence is real power. When you trust your strategy over your emotions, humiliation no longer controls you. You control it. Now imagine this. You get publicly criticized, attacked, humiliated, and instead of panic, you feel opportunity. Not because you enjoy pain, but because you see the strategic advantage others miss. So what does that look like practically? It looks like pausing when attacked and asking, how can this serve my larger goal? It looks like using the attention for your agenda instead of fighting the attention itself. It looks like staying silent when others expect an emotional response, because silence makes them reveal more about themselves. It looks like turning your critics into your marketing team without them even knowing it. Most people think power means never being humiliated. But real power means making humiliation irrelevant to your agenda. When you stop needing to defend every attack to feel strong, you become dangerous. Because the person who's immune to humiliation is the person who can take any risk, say any truth, and make any move without fear. And that's the most dangerous person in any room. The goal isn't to avoid embarrassment. The goal is to make embarrassment work for you. And once you learn how, you become untouchable. So here we are. You've heard the warnings. You've felt the tremors of recognition. You've watched the mask of defensiveness begin to slip. Now comes the part no one wants to face. The truth that doesn't just sting, it shatters. Because to truly reclaim your power from public humiliation, you must admit something terrifying. You have betrayed yourself. Not once, but quietly, daily over time. Every time you scrambled to defend your reputation when someone criticized you. Every time you hid from the spotlight when you made a mistake. Every time you sought revenge emotionally instead of responding strategically. Every time you let shame dictate your next move because it felt like survival, when really, it just helped your enemies study you. Every time you told yourself, I have to fight this, when really, you were just showing them exactly how to break you next time. But listen carefully, this isn't shame, it's awakening. You're not weak for reacting emotionally when attacked. You're not broken for feeling exposed when humiliated. You were surviving with the tools you had, and now, finally, you're ready to learn the tools of power. Because once you see the pattern, once you understand that your defensive reactions were never protecting you, they were exposing you, you no longer operate the same way. The criticism doesn't trigger the same panic. The humiliation doesn't send you into the same spiral. The attack doesn't make you react the same way. Because you realize the real enemy was never the people laughing at you. It was your need for them to stop. Let me paint this in a way that sticks. Imagine your reputation as a fortress, and inside it lives your true agenda, your real goals, your authentic power. But instead of strengthening those walls when attacked, you've been running outside to fight every critic hand to hand. You've been abandoning your fortress to chase every person who throws a stone. Meanwhile, your real enemies sit back at a safe distance, watching you exhaust yourself. They take notes on exactly what makes you react, exactly what words make you abandon your strategy, exactly how to make you destroy your own position without them having to do any real work. That's what unchecked emotional response does. It turns you into your own worst enemy. You become so focused on what people think that you forget what actually matters. You become so desperate to control the narrative that you lose control of everything else. But healing real strategic power is walking back into that fortress, closing the gates, letting them throw their stones at the walls while you focus on building something unshakable inside. It's realizing that their opinion of you was never the real battle. The real battle was always for control of your own actions. And every time you reacted emotionally to their attacks, you handed them that control. That's the work Machiavelli spoke of. He didn't want people to become cold and calculating. He wanted them to become unafraid of other people's judgments. To know that public opinion isn't the measure of real power. It's just noise that powerful people learn to ignore. Now here's the climax, the final confrontation you must have with yourself. You've been told that caring what people think makes you human, that defending yourself when attacked makes you strong, that fighting for your reputation makes you honorable. But what if all of that is just another trap? What if the very thing you think protects you is the thing that keeps you powerless? Here's the final myth that must be broken, the last illusion that keeps you trapped. You've been told that protecting your reputation means fighting every battle. That strength means never showing weakness. That power means never being humiliated. That the more you defend yourself, the more respect you earn. But freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about not needing to. True power isn't about avoiding humiliation. It's about making humiliation irrelevant to your agenda. Real power is not the perfect image, not the unblemished record, not the defensive stance. Real power is the moment you realize that public humiliation is just intelligence gathering on your enemies. Every attack tells you something. Every criticism reveals their strategy. Every attempt to embarrass you shows you exactly what they think will work. And when you stop reacting emotionally, when you stop defending desperately, when you stop hiding shamefully, something incredible happens. You become the kind of person who doesn't react to attacks because you're already 3 moves ahead. And people will notice. They'll say you've changed. You'll speak slower during confrontations. Pause longer before defending yourself. React less frequently to provocations. But when you do respond, it's surgical, strategic, devastating. They'll ask why you don't seem bothered by criticism anymore. Why you're not on social media defending yourself every time someone says something negative. Why you don't care what people say about your past failures. Why you don't get emotional when they bring up your most embarrassing moments. And you'll smile, because they won't understand that you're not avoiding anything anymore. You're not hiding from confrontation. You're not afraid of being exposed. You're simply operating from a different level of consciousness, where other people's opinions are just data, not verdicts. That's what scares most people about someone who has truly mastered this. Because when someone stops needing to defend every attack to feel powerful, they become dangerous, unpredictable, unbreakable, unmovable. Humiliation no longer threatens them, because they've already survived the worst it can do. Critics become intelligent sources, because every attack reveals the attacker's hand. Enemies reveal their strategies by the very act of trying to destroy them, because someone who can't be embarrassed can't be controlled. Marketing doesn't hypnotize them, because they're not trying to maintain an image. Peer pressure loses its teeth, because they're not seeking approval. Social media manipulation fails, because they're not addicted to validation. Political correctness can't silence them, because they're not afraid of being disliked. Because presence without desperation is the purest form of rebellion. When you stop needing everyone's approval to feel strong, you become truly strong. When you stop fearing exposure, you become truly free. When you stop caring about being right in everyone else's eyes, you become truly dangerous. Machiavelli once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and who you are is not a victim of public opinion." You are not a slave to other people's judgments. You are not a prisoner of your past embarrassments. You are an architect of power, and power is not built on the foundation of what people think about you. You are a creator of your own narrative, and narratives are not always comfortable. In fact, they rarely are. They're demanding, they're controversial, they're inconvenient. But they are yours, and they will serve your agenda in ways that defending yourself never could. So the next time the humiliation hits, the next time the criticism comes, the next time someone tries to embarrass you publicly, pause. Not to defend, not to hide, not to fight back emotionally, but to ask one simple question: how does this serve my larger strategy? That question alone can change your life, because it breaks the automatic pattern. It hands you back the pen to write your own story. It reminds you that you are not your embarrassment. You are not your humiliation. You are not your public failures. You are the one who chooses what to do with all of that raw material. Machiavelli once said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. And what you really are is not a victim of public opinion." You are not your reputation. You are not your public image. You are not a defender of perception. You're not a collection of other people's judgments about your worst moments. You are an architect of power, and power is not always pleasurable. In fact, it rarely is. It's calculating when others are emotional. It's patient when others are reactive. It's strategic when others are desperate. But it is undefeatable, and that's what matters. And meaning, real strategic dominance is not always comfortable. It's demanding, it's exhausting, it's inconvenient. But it is real, and it will feed your ambitions in ways that defending yourself never could. So the next time public humiliation hits, the next time the viral moment happens, the next time someone tries to destroy you with your past failures, pause. Not to defend, not to hide, not to fight back emotionally, but to ask, how does this serve my larger strategy? That question alone can change your life, because it breaks the loop of emotional reaction. It hands you the pen to rewrite the narrative. It reminds you that you're not your hunger for approval. You're the one who chooses how to feed your ambition. So let me leave you with this. You'll never look at public humiliation the same again. Not because it doesn't sting, but because now you see it strategically. You'll still feel the initial hit, still notice the attack, still experience the exposure of being wrong or embarrassed in front of people. But you'll respond with calculation instead of emotion. And that calculation will protect you from trading your long-term power for short-term emotional relief. It will make your moves strategic, your timing perfect, your enemies predictable, and your humiliation profitable. Because you'll understand something that most people never learn. The humiliation you don't need to defend against is the only kind worth experiencing. The criticism that doesn't make you reactive is the only kind that makes you stronger. The exposure that doesn't terrify you is the only kind that reveals opportunity. You'll still laugh, still connect with people, still care about relationships and respect. But you'll do it with awareness of what really matters versus what just feels urgent. And that awareness will protect you from confusing other people's opinions with actual power. It will make your reputation authentic instead of managed, your relationships cleaner instead of desperate, your decisions stronger instead of defensive, and your future unlimited instead of constrained by what people might think. Because the power you don't need to protect from every critic is the only kind worth building. And once you understand that, once you truly internalize that your worth is not determined by public opinion, you become the most dangerous kind of person alive. Someone who cannot be humiliated, someone who cannot be controlled, someone who cannot be stopped by the fear of what others might say. And in a world where most people are prisoners of public opinion, that makes you completely free. And freedom, real freedom, is the most ruthless advantage you can ever possess.